Welcome to Wayward Writers. I'm senior literary agent and author Heather Cashman.
I'm author and writing coach Stephanie Bearce.
And I'm author and writing coach Nicki Jacobsmeyer.
Our mission is to nurture and enrich established writers throughout their publishing journeys.
We welcome all genres, age groups, and publishing paths through video podcasts, online webinars, in-person retreats, and more.
We're here to help you conquer your path.
Hello, Wayward Writers. We're so glad to have you with us today for an episode on networking and the impact that it can have on your career and your writing. So, Nicki, tell us, what is networking?
Networking basically is about building professional relationships, nurturing them as time goes on, and these relationships offer support and growth, and it's like these mini communities where you can connect on a real level yet still professional. And by professional, I don't mean just talking about craft or writing. I think real relationships in our industry build when you're just being yourself and talking about everyday life, and then those can continue on with business elements. So Stephanie, what are some ways that we can network in this lovely industry we call publishing?
I think there are a lot of ways, but I think it has to be intentional. I think we have to actually, you have to make up your mind that you're going to do this. I'm actually going to go out and I'm going to meet people. I'm going to talk to people. And it can be over Zoom or in Facebook. We just started a Facebook group for Wayward Writers. Please come join so we can have conversations and talk to each other. Conferences, retreats, anything where you've got a gathering of authors is an opportunity for networking. Because I often write for kids, networking with teachers and librarians, so book people, bookstore folks. I think all of that networking, anything that puts us in touch with other people who are interested in the literary aspects. And so there's a lot of opportunities, but they don't just pop up in your office. You actually have to go and make an effort. Just like you have to make yourself do social media posts, maybe you don't, but I do. You have to make yourself go out and do networking too. It's a part of the job. But
Absolutely. And also your readers and other industry professionals like agents and editors and publishers and art directors and things like that. Now, those need to be handled a little bit more with care. I think. Heather, can you speak to what is an appropriate way to network with an industry professional as opposed to, maybe a fellow writer?
Yeah, for sure. When I started being an agent, actually, my networking started a long time before that. Obviously, my networking started the very first time I went to a conference. It started the very first time I tried to join a critique group or I went to a writer's group. And the thing is that you never know, like, what, as you guys were talking, this is what kept going through my mind. You never know what someone is going to say that's going to influence you, or who later down the road that contact is going to change and you're going to change, but keeping in contact, maybe there's opportunities down the road where you can collaborate or meet or anything like that. And one of my suggestions, or one of my experiences about that, was when I started as a writer, I was going to conferences and things like that, but I didn't associate much with editors or anybody like that because I had a really bad experience once when someone told me to do something trying to encourage me.
mm-hmm.
And so I went and did it, and it didn't turn out so well. So basically, I started working with Brenda Drake in Pitch Wars, and one of my jobs with her was to contact agents and try and get them to come and I never had trouble getting them to come to the agent showcase. It was very popular, but I was connecting with them. I was talking with them. Now,
Mhm.
if I had treated them as just casual acquaintances, or this is my job, I just have to get you on board, or this is just a simple invite, like I wouldn't have created relationships. And for me, I think that's what networking is all about. It's not a contact, it's a relationship. And how is your day? How happy Thursday. Oh, I hope you're having a great summer. It's really hot where I am. Just it doesn't matter what you say, but just be kind, be like normal and human, and treat people as if they're not one dimensional and like you
Right.
need something from them. You don't want to treat people like you need something from them. You want to treat people like a human being. And I think that was something I learned from Brenda. God bless her. She was like an amazing mentor to me and helped me create these amazing relationships that later on let me become an agent pretty seamlessly because I already had a ton of contacts in publishing. And so I think that's the key. Whenever you're doing something to approach somebody, are you doing it in a way that is going to make them feel like you want something from them? You're just trying to make a connection or you speak to them as a real person.
I think that's brilliant.
I,
Like, talk about what's on their wish list or what they're acquiring. Like, you guys have got to be exhausted by those questions. And not that there isn't a time and place for them, but like you said, like, just get to know the person and those
Yeah.
things will naturally follow. Don't force it, because I'm sure you all have a radar like of desperate people. And yeah, just be yourself. So what were you going to say,
Yeah.
Stephanie? I know you have some wisdom and
I
for
was just
sure.
I was just going to say that I feel like I can sum up what Heather's saying is just really be interested in that other person,
Yes.
not
Show
their,
genuine
not what their
interest.
job is so much as just getting to know that
Yeah.
person every time. And I think no
Mhm.
matter what, you're
Yeah.
going to enjoy everything better then too, because everybody has such interesting lives and interesting stories. And if you just go
Yeah.
at it that I'm going to meet somebody, I think it does help with your overall networking for your work of any kind if you get to know people as they are.
I have an example about that.
Yeah.
I actually used to, when I would talk to editors like on Zoom chats or whatever, phone calls, sometimes they'd call me if they were interested in a book, or we would just chat about getting to know each other like you would do over coffee, which didn't happen when I started agenting because it was COVID.
Yeah.
Mm.
And I used to just say, "Oh, what are you looking for? Tell me about your career, whatever." It felt, I don't know, just kind of like
Forced.
a lackluster conversation because what I really wanted to be doing was just like geeking out about books with people who are other book fans.
Yeah.
And when I started doing that, it really changed. And then also, when I went even further, I started saying, "Tell me about you. What do you do when you're not at work? What do you find that's fun and exciting?" And like this editor told me something I never would have learned if I hadn't asked that question. It turned out that I had a manuscript that had that in it. And I was like, "Oh my gosh, I have a client who has a manuscript about that. Would you want to take a look at that? It's not exactly a fit for your wish list. I think you might be like the perfect person for it." And it got bought by that person because
So
Yay.
cool.
I actually cared enough to ask
Yeah.
about them as a human being.
Mhm.
And I would
Yeah.
imagine those kind of things make all the difference when you know the person as an agent, the editor, and you know what they really
Yes.
like and different things
Makes a
about them.
huge difference.
Yeah. How
Mhm.
so you guys in networking, Heather's telling a little bit about some of the things that have influenced her career with networking. What are some other things, Heather? Any other ways that it's influenced your career?
I think that there's all kinds of networking and people to be networking with. When I think of networking, I don't just think of editors, I think of authors too. I think of networking with both of you when I was a very new writer has now given me an opportunity to be your agents, and I've sold your books. Like, how
Wow,
amazing is that?
pretty
And
cool.
Yes.
I know when both of you first shepherded me into that conference and made me feel welcome, you had no idea what was going to happen. You had no idea that
Mhm.
I would become an agent.
Nope.
So, that's the thing that I was trying to say in the beginning is you don't know how people are going to change and what they're going to become. So, keeping those relationships alive is valuable. What about you guys?
I look at the books that have been bought and published, and most of them are because of a networking relationship I had. My first
Yeah.
book was Stephanie. I went to a critique group and she was running the critique group, and I met her and we clicked with our candid, passionate spirit. And I was like, I want to, she asked about me. These are my goals. This is what I want to do. And she's, oh, have you heard of this publisher? And one thing led to another. A lot of my connections have been with other writers and also volunteering for SCBWI on the regional team. That allowed me the opportunity to network. And that's a whole nother episode we can talk about with volunteering and things like that. But there are still some relationships I made years ago that are still part of conversations I have with Heather, or, oh, yeah, she loves this, or he really likes this when we had dinner here at this event. You know what I mean? And so I think Stephanie makes a great point. You have to be intentional. And at the end of the day, like when it comes to buying a book or signing a new client, yes, your craft has to be there. So don't do yourself a disservice and focus just on networking and not your craft. Because as much as we like someone, if the craft's not there, then that's not going to be
Yep.
as big of an opportunity as you hope. But the last thing you want is to have great craft, but you feel like you're not able to make those connections. What are some advice you would give not only to new writers, but just writers that maybe haven't made networking an intentional activity? Stephanie, what, any tips?
I really do think, like I said, make it an intentional activity. When you're going to somewhere, set yourself a goal. I'm going to meet three new people. I'm going to talk to three people that I've never talked to before. I'm going to find out who they are. I'm going to have a conversation with them. And if it's only one person, just set yourself a goal of one person, but actually go out there and meet them. And I have to say, you don't know. And I think sometimes newer writers think that they need to network with the professionals as in editors and agents. But you really need to network with your other authors because that's where
Yeah.
I've gotten gigs from. So I've gotten another author will say, "Oh, my editor, I can't do, she wants me to do something. I can't do it, but I know that you write that. Could I give her your name?" And I've done that. Or for speaking engagements, it's like, I spoke at this school, they're looking for someone else to come and speak. How about that? Or at conferences or lit festivals and everything. It's just as important to make the connections with fellow authors because you're going to be sharing that kind of information. And that's part of networking. That's, I'm going to help you, you're going to help me. And if you know that person, and I know you, I trust what you write, I know you're going to recommend them. And so I think just intentionally putting yourself out there and going to things that are in person, or if they are Zoom oriented, make sure they're the kind that have a breakout session or some opportunity for you to actually do some networking, because a lot of Zoom conferences do have that available now too. What do you think, Heather?
One of the things that I think most people find so intimidating when they are trying to network is that they don't feel like they have anything to add to the conversation. And I think, at least I know when I was a very new writer, that's how I felt. I was like, you know what? I don't think that I have much to offer these other people that I'm talking to, and it made me feel like a taker. But what I learned slowly is that this is one of the reasons it's so important to network with people at your stage of the writing journey, is because you do have things to offer those people, and you do have ways that you can give back, and you can have this mutually symbiotic relationship where you are giving and receiving. And so I think sometimes it can be intimidating when you're a new writer and you think about, oh, I'm going to go meet this editor and like, whatever. Sometimes the give and take is I'm giving you some money at the conference and you're giving me a critique. And that's perfectly balanced and symbiotic, right?
Yes.
So I think that's something that you can do, is think about, like, how is it a mutually beneficial relationship? And there's always something that you have to give.
And I do think that the other thing is lots of authors who have been given a leg up by someone else are, I think that's why authors are very willing to help other people
Yeah.
and network with other people, because we had that given to us before. So it's not a pay it forward. Sometimes it is, but usually it's a pay it backward. I was treated wonderfully and I'm going to treat
Yes.
you wonderfully too, because I care about that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, Nicki, I want to hear your thoughts. Do you think networking is just as important as the writing itself, and why or why not?
Absolutely. I absolutely do. I think networking produces more opportunities to get your writing in front of fellow writers and publishing opportunities, whether that's an agent or an editor or something like that. This, you hear all the time, like, publishing is a business. And in business, you have to network. Like, part of a successful business woman or man is the connections they make, the relationships, not just the meeting, right? It's the relationships. And you have to be real and authentic. And it takes work, even whether you're an extrovert or introvert or have a business background or not. And it keeps changing. Like, if you enter a new genre or things like that, like, I'm starting a thriller, that's a whole new genre. I don't know all the lingo. I don't know, like you said. So that's intimidating again. Like, even though I've been writing for over a decade. So it's going to change when there's different goals you have in mind too. And I think being authentic in yourself and listening, not just hearing, when you're conversing with other people makes a huge difference. And people see that genuineness. People want to be around other people that care and are kind.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
You mentioned introverts.
Yeah.
Are
Yeah.
there, for Stephanie and I, are there low pressure ways that we can think of? Or Stephanie, how have you found low pressure ways to start building your network?
I haven't. There is no low
Oh,
pressure way for it.
everything feels high pressure, doesn't it?
It does. I don't know any other way to help an introvert except to say you're going to have to get over yourself. Maybe it's introverts out there.
Practice.
If some of you out there know of a low pressure way, but yeah, practice is the only thing.
It is practice. When I was a new agent and I was trying to like network with editors and stuff like that, and I would set up these meetings with them, I was terrified. The first time an editor called me, like on my phone, I was, I could barely talk. I
I
was like,
understand.
they called me on the phone and they wanted to talk to me on the phone. And I was like, legitimately had to take a few deep breaths and just be like, okay, like I have to advocate for my client.
Yeah,
It
I
was
don't know a low
super,
pressure way. I just know that the payoff is worth it.
it is.
And that's where I have to go, is that if anything, sometimes things that are tough are worth it.
Yeah.
You do it because it's worth it. Yes.
And it does get easier.
Yeah, practice. Like anything, anything you practice
Yep.
gets
Yeah.
better. And I'm sure we
Yeah. And
just
remembering
practicing.
your why. I think, right? Like when we're writing
Exactly.
and it gets really hard, what do you go back to? You go back to your why are you doing this? Same thing. Like we all, although networking might not be challenging for me as an extrovert and a business background, that doesn't mean there's some other element that is super easy for you that I struggle with. But you have to come
Yeah.
back. I love what you
Mhm.
said, Stephanie. You have to get over yourself. Like, how bad do you want
Yeah,
it?
You do.
And
you do.
and just keep going. And I think it's definitely worth it in the end.
So, what are some of your favorite ways when you get to network with people? What would you, if you could do anything to network, what would you pick? Nikki, what would you pick to go to
Oh,
network with?
I'm a face-to-face person all day long. For
Mhm.
me, I like to meet people in person. One tip I was thinking when you said what's a way before you, like when you're being intentional and you're going to go to a networking opportunity, whatever that might be, think of one or two questions that are open-ended that will help you get to know that person and use those. So when your brain is like, I'm in front of this New York Times bestselling author or whatever, an agent, and you don't know what to say, you already have those questions here.
Yeah.
But yeah, for me, I love in person and getting to know people by not talking, and so that's great for introverts too. Just ask the questions. The people like to talk. You all know that generally. Like when you ask someone when you're at the grocery store, how are you doing? And then you get a whole earful of things that, you weren't necessarily prepared for, right? So people enjoy being asked about themselves. And it's a genuine thing, a genuine relationship starter. How about you guys? What do you guys like? As I know you don't like it, but what is your preferred
No, I
preferred?
prefer, I'm like you, Nikki. I prefer to get to meet people in person. I don't know. Yeah. I like the in between things, like when you go to a conference or retreat, and the in between stuff where you have lunch with someone or a cup of not coffee for me, tea for me, or something like that, where you can chit chat and you find out not only about what they write, but also about their lives and things. And I really like those quiet moments that you can have. And it's hard to get those when it's not in person. But I'm going to figure out some way on Zoom. We're going to figure out. So I'm determined. What about you, Heather? What's your favorite way to meet people, to network?
My favorite way to be introduced to somebody is by email.
Interesting.
And I like it because I can take my time. I can craft what I'm going to say. I can make sure that I'm not making mistakes or anything like that. I like to go back and forth by email a couple of times, and then I usually invite people to chat with me
Mm-hmm.
on Zoom or in person. I used to go to New York actually and set up like I had, I had talked to these people via email several times. And then, hey, I'm coming to New York City. I would love to meet you for some kind of whatever, like lunch, or I could come to your office or whatever. And I would set up, these were exhausting weeks, but I would set up 40 appointments with different editors in a week and then go and meet them all. And by the end of it, I was like, I have to lay down for 4 days because I can't move
I
anymore.
bet. I bet for sure.
Um, but for me, when you're talking to someone on email, it's just not as much pressure. And then you already know them when you meet them. And I think that's one of the things I loved about like our last Wayward Writers retreat that we had was that a lot of the people had been emailing us. So like I knew their names, I knew who was coming, I knew what they wrote already. I had had a little taste of their writing. And I think for me, that helped me feel like I had at least something. I knew something about them.
Mm-hmm.
Because the thing is that for agents, there's so much of us out there already that I feel like I'm already starting at a deficit. Like I feel like I'm starting with less information,
Mm-hmm.
if that makes sense. So,
Yes, because
yeah,
everybody
I
knows
really
who
love
you
that.
are and can look you up. And so it's
Yeah.
nice for you to be able to do
Yeah.
something.
The first time I actually had one of my kids was like, Mom, I Googled you today and I found all this stuff about you. And I was like, what? I didn't even know that if you Googled me, my name would come up. This was a few years ago,
Yes.
but still, I was like, oh my goodness. I'm like, you can Google me. That's terrifying. Anyway,
And I think ways also to get to know someone, it starts maybe one-sided, but a person that you admire or like to get to know, have they done interviews? Have they
yeah.
done podcasts? That starts to show people's personality. And just like you research that when you're going to submit to someone, that's a good way to get a feel of a group of people. Maybe there's a group you want to join. What are they like? What are their ideals? What are their goals? And I think we all have our unique ways of making connections that we feel comfortable with, and that's important. And I think also something that we could talk about is, you know, what the role of networking, like your community, when you're networking with other writers. And I think, Heather, you said it great, like people that are at the same stage of your journey as well, especially. Yes, at first it feels like a networking thing, but then these become your people and your community. And when you have questions or need someone to cheer you on, you've already established those relationships, and it doesn't feel
Yeah.
like quote unquote work anymore, because they become who you go to for the highs and the—
If you're networking the right way, those people are going to become your friends
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
absolutely.
because you're interested in the fact that they just had a baby and you're interested in the fact that the baby is doing well or that the baby has Down syndrome. And you have this common experience that you can share because one of your favorite people in the world had Down syndrome. Like I said, they're multifaceted and there are ways to connect.
Yes.
And
Absolutely.
if you're networking right, then you will.
Right. And most like probably already networking and don't even know that's what it is.
It is. So, have
Yeah.
you ever made a networking mistake,
Ooh.
Mickey, Heather?
Oh, I'm sure. Plenty. I'm just
Ooh.
trying to think of one.
I probably made them, but I may have blocked. I'm sure I have made many. Trying to think.
I
I'm
can tell
trying
you
to think
my
of one that
horrible
I can actually
experience.
share. Go.
I can tell you my horrible conference experience
Okay.
if you want to hear it.
Sure.
Yeah, for
But I don't
sure.
want people to be afraid to go to conferences because
Okay.
this is like one experience that could have happened to anybody, but still. So it was my very first conference in the whole world. I had no idea what I was doing. I was at a table, a bunch of like people who are way more experienced than me. I didn't know anybody. And this was an SCBWI conference. The RA came over because I was new and she was trying to encourage me. And she was like, there is this famous writer. And the whole point of this time is to go and mingle. So you need to just take your chair over there and you need to sit down and you need to talk to those people. And I promise they're really nice. And so I was like, okay. I don't think this is such a great idea, but I did it. And maybe it was my trepidation, like maybe it was my kind of like conflicted feelings, like I really want to do what this person says because they say it's a good idea, but
Mhm.
I'm terrified right now. And I don't know. But I went over there and I took my chair and I was like, RA said that I should come talk to you. And I would love to hear about you and your story. And the author's grown child had come to the conference with them and was sitting on the other side of me and looked at me and said, how dare you come and sit between us and talk to my mom?
Oh no! But how would you have
And I was
known?
like, okay, I'm sorry. And I just picked up my chair and walked away
Oh, bless your
and went
heart.
back to my room. Went back to my room. I cried.
Oh no!
I almost went home
I'm glad you didn't.
because I thought she's going to see me all day tomorrow at the conference and she's going to know that I'm the one that was the idiot that went and sat by her and asked how she was doing and please tell me how she became successful or whatever I asked. I don't even remember. Anyway, So to me, that was like a networking mistake. And I think what made it a mistake is that number one, I was not emotionally prepared for it. Number two, I didn't know anything about the author. I think if I had been able to go up
Mhm.
and say, I really love this book that you wrote, and this is why I loved it. And third, I think that me bringing my chair, which the other person suggested, which she shouldn't have, it brought like territory into the mix.
That's a
It
really good,
became
it's a
territorial.
great observation.
Yes.
And I think, oh, I have thought about this a lot over the years.
Really?
So I've had many observations about it, but I think the one thing I think that I've noticed actually over and over when maybe you're at a conference or you're at like in larger groups of people is that if someone is already talking to a person, or if you are pushing in on what feels like other people's territory,
Mhm.
it can become like more of a negative thing. Whereas if you try and maybe stand back and just wait or catch the person at a time when they're not so busy, it feels better. It doesn't create as much conflict, I think, when you're really trying to network and put your best foot forward.
I think those are really good tips for all of us to remember. Just, yeah, it's tough though, especially when somebody is telling you. What about you,
It
Nikki?
took me a long time.
Oh
I'm
my
glad you
gosh.
gotten
Yeah.
over it and you're still coming back to conferences. So that just shows that any of us can make mistakes and any of us can get past them. And it's not the end of the world, even though we think it is at that moment.
Oh, it was.
But it wasn't.
Yes, my
We're
world
still
ended for
here.
at least 10 minutes.
Okay. But it
Oh
went
my
on.
goodness.
I understand.
Yeah, that's tough. That's super tough. I can't honestly. I'm reeling here because I know I've made plenty.
I've seen lots of people underestimate the person that's sitting next to you in the conference. And I've had, or the retreat or whatever it is, I've seen this happen. I know I've probably made this mistake. I don't make it anymore because I've seen it happen so many times. I really advise people to chit chat with the person next to you before you start offering advice or anything,
Mm,
because you may be talking to somebody who seems meek and mild and has is very well published. And just because you don't know their name doesn't mean they don't know their craft and everything. And I've seen that. I had to do an
yeah.
intervention at a conference once because this poor woman was being told by another person what she should do to get published. And I finally just said, I said, well, she's already been published over 30 times. So I think she's got this one. And I'm sure I embarrassed that person, but just be really aware that you don't know who you're talking to unless you do, unless you've looked them up and everything. Writers are often very quiet about what they have accomplished. They often don't want to boast. So just ask questions, start up that conversation and find out and learn what you can learn. Don't assume really anything. That's mine.
That's really good
Do not
advice.
assume.
I've actually had that happen to me before. People like didn't know I was an agent at their table, and you hear some interesting things.
Yes, you do.
Oh,
Yeah.
mercy.
So there are pitfalls to networking, but most of them I think can be overcome by what we've talked about before, that just be kind, considerate, allow people to talk and to tell you their story and be interested in them.
Do you guys think that there are things that are not like related to your career that you gain from networking?
Oh my, yes.
Oh, absolutely.
Friends.
Yeah.
I have
Friends.
I have writer
That's a
friends. They are writer friends, but they're also friends that I go to lunch with or tell them when the new grandbaby is born and celebrate all sorts of just life milestones because we or go visit someone when they're in the hospital because they're my friend.
Yeah. And also, even if a cultivated relationship doesn't occur, sometimes it's just you've met someone that makes you think about your circumstances different. Maybe
yeah.
I'm really grateful, or you learn something from that person, or maybe you feel like you're completely alone, whether it's in life or writing journey or something, and you hear someone else say something and you're like, oh, yeah, duh, I'm not the only person. And this is how they overcame it. And maybe I could do that too. I think it's a huge benefit. One thing I would say about networking too is, like we talked about, be kind and all that, but also be prepared. I know some of the many faux pas I've had, and I can't think of a specific story because there's too many, but like I go into a situation where I know I'm in a network, and this was more so when I was first starting out, but it still happens. And you're networking with someone, and then maybe they ask you a question about your book or what you're writing, or basically they're asking you to pitch your story, and you're not prepared. Like,
That's bad.
or they want to exchange information. Do you have to have a business card? No, that's not what I'm saying.
But it is nice and helpful.
But for me, I don't, that's not the time you don't want a card to give to someone that is interested in you and your work. And you're
Mhm.
like, do you have a pen? Is it the end of the world?
I've done that.
No. I've done that so many times. Are you on social media? Just have a business card. Or if funds are tight for me, like maybe I make my own things at home or whatever. Just, I would recommend part of you feeling confident when you go into a vulnerable situation is being as prepared as you possibly can.
Okay.
Because it's a terrible feeling when you walk away and you're like, that didn't go great. I would say that. And ask people if you're not sure, what should I do? Like, I'm going to this kind of situation, or I'm going online to this kind of workshop. That's where your networking group and your community comes in too, so that you can try to set yourself up to success. So if and when the opportunity arises, you feel like you're confident and secure in what and how you're communicating.
Yes. Take the business cards with you. My husband
Yes,
gets
for
really
sure.
embarrassed when he's with me and, do you have a business card? And I'm like, no. And he's, Stephanie, carry a business card with you. Yeah.
And
Getting
it's
better.
kind, you know, how they tell you, even if you're pre-published, have a website and have a social media
Have a
presence.
business card.
Why is that important? Because it means you're serious.
Yes, it does.
And I think personally, a business card means I believe in myself enough to put ink to paper.
Yeah. I highly recommend
And
it. And it is a networking tool still. I
for
know we
sure,
do everything
absolutely.
electronically, and I will take that business card and transfer it into my phone, but at least I have it and I don't have to pull my phone out right there and do it. So it's a networking tool that you really need to have. So get yourself some business cards and make them cute. Make them fun. Have a good time with it.
Yeah, and make them you, right?
Yeah,
Like, that's another way you can show who you are, and then that person can connect with it. So,
absolutely.
So I'm just going to say that not all of the connections you're going to make are professional. They don't behave professionally. I would not let that change the way that you behave. And I would say there is this need for authenticity when you're making connections, but I also think that you need to stay professional. So when you two are building connections, Stephanie, what do you think? How do you maintain this authenticity along with continuing to be professional?
I really do think this is an important thing to consider because nobody needs to know my entire life story. If after, later, and we're good friends and you want to take me for a glass of wine, I'll spill my guts, maybe, or maybe not. But I just really think that in any business, you need to draw the line. You need to know how much do I trust this person. I'm going to be professional in my language. I'm going to be professional in the things that I do and the things that I talk about. The other thing is, you don't know what's going to be offensive to someone else. And so I try to be aware that I'm not being offensive in anything. Not everybody needs to know my opinion on everything at all. And I don't need to know theirs on everything. I can work with somebody and we can have very different opinions on something and it's fine. So I
mhm.
that remembering that it may develop into a very close friendship and that can happen, but that happens over time. And so when you are networking and you're meeting people for the first time, this is a professional relationship and it's building a professional business with someone. And I really try and keep that in mind when I'm working with people. How about you, Nikki?
I would agree with if it's your first time or subsequent times when you're meeting someone. I think that's huge. And I used to think new writers are generally the ones that break this barrier just because you don't know what you don't know. But over the past decade, over my career, I've seen seasoned writers also say things that literally I'm trying to keep my eyes in the sockets kind of thing. And I'm like, oh, this just happened. And what do you do? So I think if you are in a networking situation, I think if you're focusing on the other person in a professional way by asking appropriate and open-ended questions, it's going to go off better than if you're focusing on yourself, because then you're going to either overshare or you're going to, like, in the middle of a class when questions are asked and you think, oh, I want to make a connection, this is not a time to pitch your work by asking a question specifically about your work.
Yeah.
You don't want to be remembered to be that person, right? So I think if you keep the focus on the other person in
Mm-hmm.
broad strokes, right? And see where it goes. And you're not going to like everyone. And newsflash, not everyone's going to like you. And that's okay. You can still be professional. And if it feels icky in any way, don't do it. And
Yeah.
if you're
Agreed.
questioning
Back away.
it, ask someone that you trust
Yeah.
that's also a writer. Hey, is
Yeah.
this inappropriate or is this unique enough that it would be appreciated? Because just like anything, even our own words, sometimes we have goggles on that just aren't the right set and pair. So that's, I guess that would be my
Yeah.
advice
Yeah.
that I have to tell myself too. Because you get excited, you get super excited, and then it's like diarrhea of the mouth. And sometimes you just can't stop it. Heather, what about you? Seeing as usually now as an agent, you're on the side of witnessing the faux pas, I would assume.
Yeah, I always try and think the best of people because I know that when people are writing me or emailing me or whatever, a lot of times they're just nervous.
Sure.
And I have made many a mistake because I was nervous. So I always try and be kind. But like I said, when you're emailing somebody who could possibly be a business partner or your agent, an editor, you need to be double checking. Don't not capitalize the first word of your sentences. Don't do that. Double check your emails, is all I'm saying. Make sure that you're putting out good writing skills. Make sure that you understand what a query letter is and that it's a business letter and those kind of things. Over time, you get busy, you know each other. And I'm not saying that you have to always and forever be 100% grammatically correct on every email you send to your agent. I certainly have done speech to text and sent it to my client knowing there was a couple of errors because I literally did not have time to say anything else, especially in urgent situations. But I would say just try your best not to lose your professionalism and treat it with the care that it deserves. That's what I would say.
I think that's
I don't
I
know.
think that's excellent advice. And if you wouldn't say it to the vice president of the company, don't say it. Because that's you may be talking to the vice
Yeah.
president of the company and you don't know it.
The other thing I would like to say, just a quick be careful like what you say to other people because you can be in critique groups, you can be in communities where you're networking. And when you complain or speak badly about another person, it is very toxic and can become very divisive. I have seen literally entire communities crumble because people said the wrong things
Yeah.
in a public place. And if you're going to talk bad about other people, you better be certain that that person is not better friends with the person that you're talking about than you. And you really don't have any way of knowing that.
I do think
Again,
it comes back to the adage that most of our mothers told us: if you can't say something nice, don't say anything at all.
that's right.
And that
Yeah.
rule will get you through all the networking, let me tell you.
Yeah. Yeah.
So true.
If you want to complain to God, that's what I do.
But don't let it stop you. We gave you some don'ts, but the biggest don't is don't stop yourself from networking. Get out there,
100%.
network. It makes a huge positive difference in not only your career, but in your life. It just makes it better.
Absolutely. Good luck to you all. And as your community, we are here, and go get them. Have fun and just cultivate those relationships, because they really will last your entire journey.
And join us in the Wayward Writers new Facebook group. Ask to join. We'd love to have you network with us.
Thank you for joining us on this episode of Wayward Writers.
Let's connect. Find us at waywardwriters.com, X, Instagram, YouTube, and Facebook.
See you next time. Conquer your path.